All right, let's dive into a real head scratcher today.
Yeah.
Dark matter and dark energy, but not the typical it's this mysterious stuff out there kind of thing.
Yeah, right. It's way more radical than just, some invisible stuff. We're going to explore the idea that maybe, just maybe, dark matter and dark energy are telling us something about information itself. Like how information works on a cosmic level.
Information, you mean like the key to understanding the entire universe is information. I picture like a cosmic internet or something. But hold on. What exactly do our sources even mean by information? Like, is it just data?
Well, not data like, ones and zeros in a computer. Think more like the fundamental blueprint of the universe. It's about patterns and relationships and how complex things can get.
So not just facts and figures, but more like the structure of reality itself.
Exactly. And one of the big ideas is this thing called information density, how much meaning is packed into a certain space.
Okay, I think I'm with you. And didn't our sources use some pretty interesting examples to explain this whole information density thing, like DNA?
Yes. DNA is a perfect example. It's like the entire blueprint for a living thing crammed into a tiny molecule. So much information in such a small space.
Pretty amazing when you think about it. But what about, like, outside of biology? Didn't they also talk about black holes being information powerhouses too?
Absolutely. Black holes are thought to be like the ultimate limit of information density. Imagine cramming as much information as possible into one spot. That's a black hole.
My brain's starting to hurt a little, but I'm definitely curious. So how does all this information stuff connect to dark matter and dark energy?
That's where it gets really interesting. Remember information density. Well, what if dark matter isn't actually matter at all? What if it's just areas of like super high information density?
Wait, so instead of some invisible particles, their dark matter is like invisible pockets of concentrated information.
Exactly. And what if this information, it only interacts through gravity, not through light or other forces we can easily detect? Makes it invisible to us, which would explain why we can't, actually see dark matter.
So these invisible information hubs are pulling things around with their gravity, affecting galaxies and stuff. That's a pretty wild thought.
It is, and it might just explain some of those weird gravity effects that made scientists think dark matter existed in the first place.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this information thing could really change how we think about dark matter.
Mm.
But what about dark energy? Where does that fit in?
Oh, that's where things get even weirder. Our sources say dark energy could be the universe constantly making new information space, basically expanding the potential for more information to exist and do its thing.
So instead of some mysterious force pushing the universe apart, dark energy is like the universe is expanding its hard drive to store more information.
You got it. It's like the universe is investing in its own ability to handle more and more complex stuff.
Okay, that's a huge change in how we usually see things. But wouldn't a universe that runs on information eventually, like, run out of space to expand? How does this model explain that?
Now, that is a great question. And it takes us even deeper into all this cosmic stuff. It makes you wonder, what are the limits of information? And what happens when the universe hits those limits?
Okay, now you've really got me hooked. This is making me question everything. So dark matter is concentrated information. Dark energy is the universe making room for more. What else can this information idea help us understand?
Well, remember all those big cosmological mysteries that scientists have been trying to figure out forever? Like, why is the universe expanding faster and faster? Or why do parts of the universe that should be totally separate seem weirdly connected? This information view might have some surprising answers.
You've officially blown my mind. Let's dive into those cosmic puzzles. Tell me more.
One that's really stumped scientists is the cosmological constant problem. It's this huge difference between how much energy we think should be in empty space and what we actually see.
Yeah, the worst theoretical prediction in physics or something like that, right?
It is. Our current understanding of quantum physics, it says that even empty space should be like buzzing with energy from these virtual particles. But when we actually measure it, the vacuum energy, it's way, way smaller.
So how does thinking about information help explain this problem?
Well, what if instead of thinking about vacuum energy as all these particles, we think of it as the potential for information to exist, like the processing power of the universe, but there's a limit to how fast it can be used.
A cosmic speed limit for information.
Exactly. So that huge theoretical value for vacuum energy, maybe that's the total potential, but the universe can only process a tiny bit of it at a time, like having a supercomputer, right? It can do trillions of calculations per second, but the software you're running, it only uses a tiny fraction of that power.
Right, right. So instead of like our physics being wrong, it's more like the universe has a built-in limit on how fast information can work.
Yeah, kinda. And this information idea, it might help with another mystery too, the galaxy rotation problem.
Oh, yeah. That's the one where stars at the edge of galaxies are moving way faster than they should based on the stuff we can see, right?
Exactly. And that's why scientists came up with dark matter. But what if instead of like clumps of invisible stuff, what if it's those information density gradients we were talking about?
So invisible zones of super concentrated information are messing with the gravity of galaxies.
That's the idea, like an invisible structure made of information shaping how galaxies move, even though we can't, directly see it.
I'm starting to see how thinking about information changes everything. What other mysteries can it explain?
Well, how about the horizon problem? We see that different parts of the universe, places that should never been in contact, they have the same temperature.
Yeah, it's like finding two cups of coffee on opposite sides of the world, and they're exactly the same temperature, even though they've never been near each other.
Exactly. It's bizarre. But remember how we talked about time being the rate at which information changes states, and how that rate is affected by information density?
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Well, what if information doesn't have to follow the same rules as matter and energy? What if those separate parts of the universe are actually more connected on an information level than we realize?
So information can jump across huge distances instantly, even faster than light.
It's a possibility. Think about quantum entanglement. Two particles, they can be miles apart, but they still act like they're linked. Like information is traveling in a way we don't fully understand yet.
So those distant parts of the early universe, maybe they were talking to each other through some kind of information channel we haven't figured out yet.
Right. If information can be shared instantly, then the horizon problem, maybe it's not so mysterious after all.
This information framework is blowing my mind. All these impossible things, they kind of start to make sense when you think about information.
I know, right? It's a totally different way of seeing the universe.
Okay, so we've got information density, the speed of information, and maybe information can even travel faster than light. What other crazy ideas does this framework give us?
Well, one of the most interesting things is how systems can go from having low information density to high information density. It seems to go against how we usually think about entropy, where things get more disordered over time.
Right, how can information get more concentrated and complex if everything's supposed to be moving towards disorder?
It's a good question, and it takes us to some of the most fundamental processes in the universe.
So we've been talking about this crazy idea that maybe information is the key to figuring out the universe, even stuff like dark matter and dark energy. But you just brought up a really interesting point, how information can get more concentrated when we usually think the universe is always becoming less organized. How does that even work?
Well, it seems like information can actually go against that, like normal flow. It's
Yeah.
all about energy and feedback loops. Think about how life starts from simple things, or how galaxies form from clouds of gas. It's like information getting more organized and complex over time.
Okay, I get what you mean, but how does this information concentration happen? It still feels kind of backwards to me.
Let's look at a simple example, like living things. They take in energy from their environment, like sunlight or food, and they use that energy to build themselves, these really organized structures. They're basically concentrating information right there, even though they might be increasing entropy overall.
So it's like they're borrowing order to make even more order.
Exactly. And maybe the same thing happens on a huge scale, like with galaxies. Gravity pulls stuff together, making things denser, and as more stuff clumps up, the gravity gets stronger, pulling in even more stuff. It's like a cycle.
So gravity is like a giant information organizer, taking all these random bits of stuff and making them into stars and planets.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. And if we apply this to dark matter and dark energy, things get really interesting. Remember how we said dark matter might be areas with super concentrated information?
Yeah, like those invisible hubs that mess with gravity. What if they formed kind of like galaxies, but like way bigger?
That's the idea. Maybe with types of information we don't even get yet. It's like the universe found ways to concentrate information that go beyond anything we can see right now.
So dark matter could be like the most extreme example of concentrated information shaping the entire universe.
It's a wild thought, isn't it? And dark energy, that might be the opposite.
You mean the universe expanding?
Well,
That's not about information.
Well, think of it like this. The universe expanding could be it making more space for information, more potential for things to get complex and organized, like it's investing in its own ability to make even more information.
So dark matter is all about concentration, and dark energy is about, like, potential. It's a balance between the two, all about information.
I like that. It captures the idea perfectly.
This whole conversation's been incredible. I've got so many new ideas about information, dark matter, dark energy, all of it.
It's a lot to process, that's for sure. But that's what's so cool about all this, pushing the limits of what we know. Who knows what we'll find out next?
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive for today. But I gotta ask, if the universe really is all about information, what does that mean for us? Are we just, like, patterns of information too?
That's a question that's been around forever. But this information idea, it definitely adds a new layer to it. It makes you think about, like, what is consciousness and where do we fit in all of this?
It really does. To everyone listening, keep asking those big questions. Keep exploring and being curious about the universe. Because like we learned today, there's always something new to discover.
Totally. Keep those minds open and keep those questions coming.
And as always, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.